Wake that ass up. Early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
Because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Ladies and gentlemen, friend to the room, of course, we have Elliott, Connie here. Welcome
Thank
back,
you.
I should say.
Thank you. Appreciate
What's up, brother?
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling very good.
First day of Mental Health Awareness Month, man. When you hear people celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month, or you see everybody posting their green ribbon, what do you think people really should be getting out of Mental Health Awareness Month?
What I hope they should get out of Mental Health Awareness Month is, I mean, it's almost redundant, really, but just an awareness that your mental health is important, as important as your physical health, your emotional health, your overall well-being, and I hope it lasts longer than a month. I hope that we can use this month as an opportunity to allow people to focus on their health, their mental health going forward.
Okay.
Now, you got a new podcast, Family Therapy.
Family Therapy.
And I have a question. Was talking to my wife the other day, right? And we were talking about our kids. I have 6 kids.
Yeah.
And she was telling me that 3 of my kids feared me.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
3 of them didn't. The 3 that didn't, of course, is Logan, who is the, Diesel. No, I'm just kidding. But Logan, the baby, Peyton, and Brooklyn, which is the youngest 7. The other 3 said they fear Dad at times. Now, it was kind of concerning to me because I've never beat them, never hit them, never popped them. I am stern. I always say I'm fair but firm. Yeah. But it bothered me why they were fearful. And they said the reason that they were fearful is because sometimes I raise my voice when I ask them to do things. So, for instance, my 9-year-old, his job in the house is to make sure the refrigerator is full with juice, water, sodas, whatever it may be. That's his job. So when Dad comes home from a weekend and wants a cold soda and there's no soda, I'm like, this is your only job? And I might get a little loud. It is what it is. My daughter's job is to make her bed and to do the dishes. If they're not done, I raise my voice a little bit. But as family therapy, having a family, what is your take on kids and fearing their dad? Not fear where they see me, they dive under the bed, but that little fearful thing.
Well, first of all, I think sometimes we confuse fear and respect. So I think it's a good idea for children to respect their father and their mother. In this specific instance, I would ask you, if your youngest child's job is to make sure there's juice and soda and things in the refrigerator, and you come home and there is nothing cold to drink, and you're frustrated and you get a little loud, my question for you would be, when you come home and there is drinks and the child has done their job, do you get equally enthusiastic in the praise of them?
You're right, I don't.
And if you did, then that would create a balance, and there wouldn't necessarily be the fear, because they wouldn't associate you with the feedback of it hasn't worked. You have to be equally enthusiastic in the praise as you are in the criticism.
So is this what Family Therapy is all about? I listened to the first episode, and I forgot the couple's name.
Jay and David.
Yeah. The former NFL player. Yeah. So is this what it would be about? Questions like NB just asked?
Yeah, the way that I do therapy, it's called solution-focused brief therapy, and it's based on questions. And questions are very, very powerful things. And we don't really think about the questions that we ask ourselves. Mm-hmm. But questions are real powerful, and we can't help but change it. So my job is to ask people the kinds of questions that change the way they look at things, change the way they view themselves, and change the way they react in the world.
And the question I do ask, a lot of times we don't give positive reinforcements because it's what you should do, right?
Yeah, but that's
nobody ever says, Charlamagne, you were a good dad this weekend. He's supposed to be.
That's not true. My kids give me positive reinforcement all the time, and I love it.
But nobody on the outside world says, Charlamagne, my kids do that too, but nobody will say, Charlamagne, you took your kids out this weekend. Oh, you were being a good dad.
I don't care about the outside validation.
But we need to have more positive conversations. Like, I remember I was in like the 3rd grade, literally the 3rd grade. And y'all remember when you're that young, you get a grade for everything, right? Like your report card has 50,000 things on it.
Yep.
I was so happy that I got A's in like English, right? I got like 5 or 6 A's, whatever it was. And I remember coming home and I'm like so pleased. I'm going to show my father like this report card. Like it's got all these A's on it. He's going to love this. I showed him this report card and I got a very kind of low response. And I was like, aren't you going to? And he actually said to me, you're supposed to get A's. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, then why try? Like as a 3rd grader, I remember thinking, what's the point in putting forth effort? because we need to have positive conversations, if only to create balance for the negative conversations, because the world makes us talk about negative things. So we have to create effort to talk about positive things.
And what's crazy, we act like as humans, we don't already know that.
Right.
Like everything we do every day, you're looking for some type of positive reinforcement,
Right.
whether you say you are or not. That's why social media is the worst at that.
That's true.
Like if you're going to read comments about something that you did, it's because you want positive reinforcement. You're not just reading them for your own health.
The whole reason that we woke up today and all of us we all did some grooming thing. You chose an outfit. If you didn't care about positive, you'd roll out of bed, throw on a t-shirt and come to work.
That's right.
Right? The reason why we put forth effort in anything is we want acceptance and we want positive validation and we want feedback. And I'm promising you, like your children want, when your child does a good job and he's loaded all the drinks in the refrigerator, he wants somebody to come and tell him, good job. And that's not weakness. That's just the human condition.
If humans didn't care, compliments and insults wouldn't exist.
Would not exist.
Either one.
Not at all.
Now, what do you think about these students dealing with everything that's going on, with them having to think about who's going to be the next president, and some of these students protesting on these campuses? How is that affecting their mental health? Because, I mean, as adults, we're stressed out, so I know it has to be even worse on them.
Yeah, I'm concerned for this generation of kids because we're not designed to consume the level of data that we are consuming. And these kids are consuming massive amounts of information at a time when their brains can't really handle it. So I'm concerned about what that's going to do to their overall well-being, to be very honest with you. Like, we're seeing massive upticks in things like anxiety and depression. It's directly attributable to what's going on in the world. Having said that, I'm also very encouraged to see these kids playing a role in what their future will look like. I think politicians should be more responsive to society. And what I see these kids doing is letting the world know what they want to have happen in their life.
That's right.
And I hope that politicians listen and pay attention, because these young people are going to be the ones voting for the next however many years. And I think this generation is more kind of interactive in the world they want to create. I think this generation is more like contributing to the world they want to live in. And I think that's a beautiful thing, actually. And I hope politicians pay attention to it. They won't be reelected.
When it comes to family therapy, what is family therapy to Elliott, Connie?
Man, that's a good question. I think family therapy, it's hard for me at this point in my career, it's hard for me to differentiate family therapy versus any other kind of therapy, because family therapy is really therapy that impacts the system. And I think we often think family therapy is when the system comes to therapy. But I don't really think about it that way anymore, because I think any kind of therapy I do impacts the system. And we all know this. Like, if you have a super great day and you go home, that's going to reverberate through the household. If one of your children goes to school and has a super bad day, that's going to reverberate through the household. So if one member of a family comes to therapy, and that healing does something in the family, then that's systemic. I remember working with a client one time, and this kid was probably 13 years old. And these are the kind of things that molded my view of humans, change, therapy, and family therapy, really. But this 13-year-old, I asked him what he wanted to achieve. When I do therapy, I always ask people what are their best hopes from talking with me, and which is my way of saying, how do you want this to make a difference in your life? And this 13-year-old said, I don't think you can. And I said, how so? And he explained to me that his father drank a lot. And he said, there's really nothing you can talk to me about that's going to help my father stop drinking. And I said, that's true. So let's imagine your father continues drinking. Like, he never stops. He just continues drinking throughout your childhood. But you develop the ability to achieve your greatness in spite of your father's drinking. What kind of greatness do you want to achieve? This kid tells me he wants to go to college and tells me the career he wants to have. And we start having this discussion about his future, which, by the way, is really important, because your future should not be singularly determinate based upon somebody else's behavior, even your parents.
That's right.
And this 13-year-old starts telling me about this future he wants to have. At the end of the first session, he's like, man, this was really cool. Like, I'm glad I got to talk to you about this. He comes back to another session. I said, what's been better? And he said, you know what? My father's still drinking, but I'm doing better in school because I'm realizing that my future is my future. Not really, I don't have to wait for my father to heal in order for me to grow. Great. So we have probably 2 or 3 sessions. And I don't see that kid anymore. The mom tells me kid's doing better. I don't hear from that kid whatsoever. About 6 months later, the father comes to therapy. And I said, what do you best hope from our talking? And the father said, my son is doing better, and I need to figure out how to not ruin it.
Wow.
And that father ended up getting sober. Now, how does that happen? Because we participate in whatever is going on in the family. So if that is something positive, then the family has a tendency to get on board with that. If that is something negative, then the family has a tendency to get on board with that. So prior to me meeting that child, the dad's drinking was creating a negative environment and producing negative outcomes. The kid's grades were suffering, so on and so on. But once the kids started getting better, then the family gets on board with that, and that father ended up getting clean. So when the child initially said, I don't think you can help me with the thing that I want to achieve, I knew he was wrong. Of course we can. You are a very powerful force in your family. So if you go home and you start doing positive things and you start changing your life, then the father has to kind of look at himself in a different way. And for me, that's what family therapy is. It's having an impact on how a family system functions. It's having impact on future generations within a family. It's having an impact on healing generational traumas. To me, that's what family therapy is. Doesn't really matter whether there's one person there or whole family system shows up. Totally irrelevant.
I think I ask you this question every time you come about society, and society being a lot softer than when we were kids. Is that changing at all? Because I think a lot of times people, they don't go through the problems that they necessarily have because it's easy to be like, I'm having a mental problem. I need a mental break instead of dealing with the situations. How do you think this helps the youth grow up when it comes to dealing with problems, dealing with things, and dealing with just life in general?
Yeah, I don't know if this generation is softer. I know that's a common thing that we say. I think this generation is more sensitive.
Okay.
And I think this generation has more resources and information available to them that we did not have. Like I tell people all the time, like I took a lot of beatings and abuse simply because I didn't know there was a whole organization designed to protect me called Child Protective Services. I had no idea that was a thing when I was 10 years old.
You better not call them on your parents.
Exactly. These days, kids know that. Yeah. But I think the further thing to your question that I think is really important is I do think we have to face challenges. I do think that we learn a lot from overcoming challenges. I think we learn a lot from overcoming obstacles that we didn't think we could overcome. Human beings are animals in pursuit of comfort. So it's very easy to be challenged and then think, I'm going to take a day off from school or a day off from work. I need a rest day, or I need a mental health break, when really what they need is to face that challenge head on and to overcome it. And I think we should encourage kids to do that and remind them that you are capable of achieving things even when you didn't think you could.
You know what's interesting about what Envy said? The illusion that you grow up to be an adult with no issues. I don't know anybody from our era who don't have issues. Like just like all of that, those beatings or whatever. It didn't make us tougher. We didn't grow up in life and not know how to be able to deal with our issues better. Everybody's fragile.
Yeah.
Like I know 40-plus-year-old people right now that are fragile. They're on Instagram crying. They're in interviews crying. Like they are. You can look at them and tell that they need some real work done.
Yeah. That's why I understand what Envy is saying. I understand what you're saying fully, but I don't know that it's softer. I think to live is to struggle. And I don't know anybody that doesn't have anything to heal from.
I think we suppressed more.
I agree.
I think these kids, they just express it. Like they have and they have the language for it. They know what they're dealing with and they know what they're going through. That's why I hate when people say things like therapy is a trend now or talking about mental health issues is a fad. No, I feel like there's a generation that just feels open about talking about these issues.
Right, which I think is a good thing.
Absolutely.
I think it's a very good thing.
Absolutely.
Like, to your point, Charlamagne, like I've had in the past, I would say 5, maybe 7 years, I've had more therapy initiated by a child in the family than ever before that. Like I've had people say, my child saw one of your videos, my child saw you lecture at the local school, my child saw you in some way and wanted me to contact you for therapy. We wouldn't have done that as kids. Like that wasn't something we would have done in our generation. And I think this generation is just more expectant of having these things addressed as they should be.
You know what I thought
it was like, I was thinking, sorry to cut you off, like one of the students, we were at Clark University, right? And it's finals week, right? And we've all been through finals week.
Yeah.
We all been through final week and how difficult that is to prepare and to study. And it's a a semester's full of work, right?
Yeah.
But we all know that we have to study and we have to get to it and we have to take those tests.
Yes.
I've seen students say, it's too hard for me. I need a mental break. This is too difficult. I need to take a week off. Now, when you get to that level, do they really need a mental break, or is it still overwhelming? Because it's the same issues and the same studying that we've been doing, that I've been doing, your parents been doing, my parents been doing. So why is it now that it's too much? Because we've been doing it, and even if we fail or we pass, if we get an A, a B, or a C, like we still do what we got to do. We try our hardest. But I feel like sometimes it takes kids away from trying their hardest.
But I don't. First of all, I agree with you. I think if kids look at how hard it is, it takes away from them being able to try their hardest. But I also think we somehow romanticize the past, because I remember taking finals, and I remember kids saying, I need a week off, I need a mental health break. I remember that. We just didn't really give it any attention, because there's equal amount of kids saying, I just got to get through this. And I'm sure that's true today. There are kids that are just like, I got to get through this. And then there are other kids saying, I need a week off, because it's stressful for them. It's anxiety provoking for them.
But that's life.
But that's life. And it was life in 1995 when I went to college taking these tests. And it's life in 2024 for these kids now. And some of these kids, like, this might be too much for them, as it was for some of the kids I went to college with.
It was too much for us. But I didn't go to college, but life is too much for people. Why are we acting like that these kids are going through anything that we didn't go through? And we didn't come out of it clean. We're crazy.
I actually think life is way harder now, because we had to go through all of that without social media.
Yes.
I think life is way harder because of that. I had no idea whatsoever about what was going on politically. I did not understand international war. I didn't understand any of that. And these kids right now are very aware.
Yo, my dad
those topics.
My dad told me in 2018. You know, when I started talking about my issues around 2016, and my book came out, Shook One. He told me that he tried to kill himself 30 plus years ago. He's been on 10 to 12 different medications for his mental health. Yeah, he was going to a therapist 3 and 4 times a week. You know how many stories I started hearing like that? Yeah. Once I started having conversations.
Absolutely.
So this whole notion that we just went through everything in the 80s and 90s like it was nothing. It's a lie.
True. It's not accurate.
It's
we
a lie.
romanticize the past.
Yes.
And I think times were hard. Times are always hard. It's actually harder now because social media is real. Social media is a thing. And these kids' anxieties are through the roof. And that's not weakness. We're actually introducing more to their brains than they can handle. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I would have studied for my finals if I also had to worry about a war. There are multiple wars going on right now, actually. But if I had to worry about all that stuff, it's too much. It's literally too much.
What do people do to protect their minds, their mental, against social media? Because I always say it's a lack of emotional IQ for people to care so much about what other folks think about them. Am I accurate or am I wrong?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I think what people should do, I really want to say get off of it, right? But I think it's too late. It's too late. The easiest thing is to remember that that's not real life. Mm-hmm. I think we have to train our children to understand that is not real. That does not matter. That's monopoly money, essentially. Like what's going on in social media, it doesn't matter. It's not really real. It's not really important. And when kids realize that, they tend to do way better.
It's not just kids though.
It's adults.
It's adults. I'm watching some really intelligent people that I know are some of the most well-read, book-smart individuals who care more about their relationships online than they do with their relationships offline.
I think that's true. But I was focusing on kids because that's what we were talking about. But everybody, we need to remember that, that world is just not real. Mm-hmm. What's real is your friendships, your connections, the people you talk to, your family, your loved ones. That's what's real. How many likes and followers you have, that is irrelevant data. That is not real. But people get caught up in it.
But I also tell my kids and I tell my friends, use social media as a tool.
That's exactly what it is.
Not as an educational piece, not as a friend, not as something where you're looking for approval. Use it as a tool. Like my daughter does. She just graduated from NYU and she works for Sirhan and she does real estate. I said, you use it to do your real estate.
That's exactly what it is.
You do it as a tool. My other daughters do dance. You do it for that. You do it for tool. But most people don't say it. And like Charlamagne said, they look for acceptance from people that are not going to give them the acceptance that they're looking. And they try again until we see them self-destruct.
That's 100% true. I absolutely think it is a tool. That is all social media is a tool. Where we've gotten into trouble is social media has turned the world into like that high school popularity contest.
That's right.
Correct.
And I remember being in high school and, you're upset because the girl you like doesn't like you back, or you're not sitting at the cool kid table at the cafeteria or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the adults would say, in a few years this ain't gonna matter because this isn't real. And they're right. That's 100% true. There are people, adults, celebrities, like I've seen people all over the world, like they just get too wrapped up in what social media is saying about them because we've allowed it to become like the world's cafeteria. But if you use it as a tool, and if you remember, like, this is not real, you tend to have much healthier lives about that stuff.
And how can a bunch of strangers tell you about you? And more importantly, how can a bunch of strangers tell you about somebody you actually know? Imagine if I interact with a person every day in real life, but on social media, it's a whole other narrative about this individual.
Yeah.
Who am I supposed to believe? My real life experiences? Are these motherfuckers on social media that don't even know you?
These people on social media, they don't know you. They're just spitting out whatever they heard. I just think it's crazy that we've allowed this to happen. And we have to remember that it's just not real. And personal relationships still, in fact, matter. I have friends in the entertainment industry, and I see stories about them that I know not to be true. There have been times that I've been hanging out with people like Tiffany Haddish, and I'll see stories about her. I'm like, I know that's not true. I was there with her that particular night. And to your point, like, I'm not listening to that story. Like, I'm going to believe my own real relationship and interaction with this person. And I think too often we let social media determine and define what our experiences are, and it's just not real.
As a therapist, is social media the number one thing you see affecting people's mental?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I think social media is absolutely, especially in the younger generation, is the number one thing contributing to a mental health crisis in this society.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow.
For sure.
And the only explanation, I mean, the only I guess cure for it is to just get off.
I would love to say that, but they're not going to get off.
Yeah.
The only cure for it is to realize it's artificial. It is not real. It does not matter. And the reason why we have to be limited with it, again, your brain is influenced by the data it receives. So if Envy, how tall are you?
6 foot.
6 foot. This is how susceptible your brain is to information. Now he knows he's 6 foot. I asked him, and in a second, he was like, this is the answer. If I train everyone in your life to start calling you 5'10", eventually he's going to be like, maybe I'm 5'10". Everybody's saying it. Get some 5'10". Like, that's how susceptible your brain is. So imagine if you are on social media and everybody's saying such and such about you, whether you know it to be true or not becomes irrelevant because the onslaught of data influences the way your brain thinks. And the only way to combat that is to stay off of it. I have a team. I run a large therapy training organization, and we post a lot of content on social media, and not all the comments are kind. Not all the comments are useful. And every now and then, and I get a notification whenever anybody comments, I get a notification on my phone. And if I say anything to my team, they all say, stay out of those comments, because they're trying to protect my mental health. Because they know if you see that stuff constantly, an onslaught of it, your brain accepts it. So we have to limit that stuff. And what I do to limit is I just don't look at the comments.
So question, like, let's say you're on social media and it's a bunch of positive comments, right? Like, literally, it might be 10, 15 positive comments, and then there's just one negative comment. Why are our brains wired to focus on that negative comment?
Well, it's a survival, really. Like, we are very good at determining threat. Like, that's what human brains are designed to do. And a negative comment is associated with threat. So we're much better at holding on to a negative comment because we perceive that as a threat, and that keeps us safe. We have to work against that and actually give weight to the compliment, because it's actually true. Like, if 100 people tell you you're the greatest, or 100 people tell you you're the greatest, and then one person says you're the worst, we have a tendency to hold on to that. And we have to counter that by realizing we're no longer in a survival situation. We can actually enjoy the loving comment that we got, and we can actually give weight to that loving comment just as much. And that improves your mental health. That makes life better.
I was going to ask, when you're dealing with people that's been on social media, how do you, because most people are not going to get off social media, right?
No, they're not.
They're not. You can say, hey, get off social media. Even to myself, like, I do limit the amount of time that I'm on. I don't look at comments. There's certain things that I don't do because I'm getting to the point where I don't care, right? And I think that's one of those things where you've been beat up so much you just don't care. So how do you explain that to people, especially celebrities who they live off of this? And sometimes they might change who they are based off of a comment. They might change their inside based off of a comment. They might change who their living is based off of a comment. So how do you, talk to kids, adults, and celebrities about that?
By explaining to them the goal should be happiness. And I don't know anybody, literally anybody, that spends a lot of time caring about what people think about them that are happy. So if the goal is happiness, then the pathway becomes very, very clear. We know what we need to do to be happy. I don't have to actually tell them what to do. I just have to ask them, what is your goal that you're trying to achieve? I'm trying to achieve happiness. You tell me what you need to start doing differently in order for you to achieve happiness. Like, we know we shouldn't be drinking. We know that we shouldn't be out late at night. We know we shouldn't be using drugs. We know we shouldn't be on social media extreme amounts of time. And when I say, like, what do you need to do in order to achieve happiness, they tell me I probably need to stay out of the comments, because I've noticed when I'm in the comments more, I'm happy. I'm less happy. I notice when I'm out drinking, I'm less happy. I notice when I'm out super duper late after a night at the club, I'm less happy. So what do you need to do? They always say the exact same thing. More time with family, more time with my partner, more time in the gym, more time doing healthy things. I don't know anybody who spends time doing those things and isn't happier, or at least a happier version of themselves. But we just waste our time doing these other things, mostly because vanity is real.
Right.
Like, vanity is really, really real. And people want those vanity metrics. I want my followers up. I want people interacting.
That's right.
But what you should want is happiness.
Well,
That's why meditation is so important. That's why time with yourself is so important, because
Facts.
you really got to be aware of the energy your body is feeling. Like, there's certain people, certain circumstances, certain things that you can automatically make your energy feel up.
100%.
And then there's certain people, certain things, certain circumstances that make your energy automatically go down. So which one should you stay away from?
That's absolutely
Right.
true.
Like, but you won't understand that if you're not really in tune with your emotional and mental well-being.
That's absolutely true. Like, there's so much I want to say about the podcast Family Therapy, and I can't really, because you got to watch it.
They got to experience it.
You got to listen to it. But the big lesson that I hope people get is the woman focus on this podcast is one of the most incredible, inspiring, well-achieved women that you could possibly meet. But when she looked in the mirror, that's not what she saw. And when you spend time with yourself, and when you meditate, and when you fully assess, we have a tendency to assess ourselves and only be aware of the negative things. And I think sometimes therapy has enforced that, because you got to figure out what's wrong with you and fix it. But what if, at least in part, I would actually go farther, but at least in part, what if we have to figure out what's great about us and own that too? And throughout this, you're going to see how that impacts people. And I hope, if I could make one contribution to society, I hope I would be helping people to see their greatness within themselves. Because I just don't think we spend enough time doing that. I don't think we spend enough time celebrating ourselves. I don't think we spend enough time looking in our history, realizing that I'm kind of awesome. I got through that.
Yeah.
I overcame that. I achieved that. We spend a lot of time saying, "Oh, I should have been," like social media, right? I thought I'd be a millionaire by 30, or I thought I'd have 100,000 subscribers by this date. And we really need to just change the way we think about everything. We need to look back and have a positive assessment of ourselves.
You're right. And, one thing my big-headed co-host said to me that he don't think I be listening, but I be listening. One thing he said that I finally got a couple of years ago, and people hate me for it, but I don't care, is being comfortable, right? Sometimes, I'm not going to say sometimes, but before I would make myself uncomfortable, or I would be uncomfortable because of other reasons, right? And now I'm in a position, and I think everybody should be this way if they can, just to be happier in life. Meaning, if something doesn't make you comfortable, if you're going somewhere or somebody in your house or somebody around you, change it, because it makes you happier, right? Because a lot of times we get to the feeling of somebody apologizes and you forgive them, and you just don't want them around you. I forgive you, but I just don't want you in my vicinity. I just don't want to be there. If I don't want to go to this function, I'm not going to the function. And I don't care who thinks any way around me, because I realize that makes me happier in life, right?
True.
I used to I think my big head co-host was an asshole. He'd be like, I ain't going because I just don't want to go. And I'd be like, Charlamagne's being Charlamagne. But then when you realize, nah, he's protecting his mental because he don't want to deal with them people.
That's
Correct.
You know what I mean? And I noticed once I started doing that, life is even better. Like it is what it is.
That's why he loves going to get prostate exams a lot. Makes him comfortable. He likes that. Right? You've had a few of them.
You too.
Yeah, I only had 2.
I don't gotta be here for this moment. No, but I think that's absolutely true. When you protect your own peace, and if somebody invites you to do something and you know that would interrupt my peace,
That's right.
you don't have to go.
No way.
That's right.
The only reason we go is because I don't want them to think this. No. You need to prioritize yourself.
That's right.
We need to do that much more often. And I don't think we do very often as a collective. You know, we do a lot of things because we want other people to think, you know, this, that, or whatever.
Do too much explaining of why, but it could be because I don't want to.
Right.
Or just no.
No, I don't want to. The best thing I can do tonight is spend time with myself. So I'm not going to go to the thing that you've invited me to, whatever it is.
I wanted to ask you, too, about, you recently did some work with Fredo Bang.
Yeah.
You were on Fredo Bang's, well, y'all did a therapy session together.
We did a session that he's going to use for the release of his newest album and for the song Yes, I'm Sad.
Yeah, I think it was the deluxe album.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like?
Man, that was incredible. Charlamagne, it's hard to even put into words. First of all, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him.
Mm-hmm.
In a very short amount of time, getting to know him, he's been through a lot. Like, he has been through a whole lot. And in just the decision to want to address that and to have a conversation with a therapist, in my opinion, is a profound decision.
Mm-hmm.
But to expose his audience to that because he wants to spread healing, that was an incredible thing to be a part of. And for me, like, at this stage of my career, like, I want to make healing go viral. You know, right. I want to make healing, and I mean true healing. I'm not talking about talking about it or you know, fixing what's wrong with you. I mean, like, to your point earlier, I don't know anybody who's been alive longer than 10 minutes that doesn't have something to heal from. And when I look at social media, you know, you'll see someone with a super positive mental health message and they get this many views, and someone doing a food review of a cheeseburger stand gets this many views.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Like, I'm not hating on them. Like, you know, have your success. But I want the world to be equally interested in mental health and healing. And for someone like Fredo, with his positionality in the culture, to prioritize that, I think that that's massive. I think that's the kind of thing that will have a rippling impact and will likely save people's lives. Like, someone's life, I can guarantee you, someone's life will be saved because they look up to Fredo and they recognize him as who he is in the culture. And if he thinks therapy and mental health is important, then someone somewhere in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or wherever is going to think mental health is important, and they're going to seek therapy too because Fredo made it cool. So to be a part of that moment was, it's hard to put into words how appreciative I am for that, and how much that means to me. Right. It's a very, very big deal, I think.
All right, listen, make sure y'all subscribe and download Elliott Connie's podcast, Family Therapy with Elliott Connie. You know, today is the first day of Mental Health Awareness Month, man. So if you're looking for a new mental health awareness podcast, a new mindfulness podcast to add to your rotation, Elliott Connie Family Therapy is the one. And if they want to participate, what can they do? Yeah, look, so follow me on social media, at Elliott Speaks. Spell my name with 2 L's and 2 T's, at Elliott Speaks. And leave a comment, leave a rating, like, really help us reach more people. Like I tell people, I really do want mental health and healing to go viral and have a moment and impact lives. And I can't do that without help. So if you want to participate, listen to the podcast, download it on iHeartRadio app, the Black Effect podcast network website, wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and join the conversation. Like, and when you listen, this is like, how do I describe it? It's like this epic reality show. There are multiple characters within this first family that we're doing this with, and you're gonna really resonate with David or Jay or Jay's father, who's a part of the process, whose name is Freddie. Just allow yourself to have access to it, and I think you're gonna heal. And one more thing I will say too. Questions are such a powerful thing. You're gonna hear me asking questions to the participant family, and you're going to find yourself answering those questions
and it's going to impact your life. So just expose yourself to it, follow it. Follow me on social media. We'll be posting clips, and I'll be doing some cool things there. But help us spread this word because we need y'all help.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. It's Elliott, Connie. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.